Julius Caesar. Gaius Julius Caesar wasn't just another Roman politician. By 44 BC, he controlled the most powerful empire on Earth. He'd conquered Gaul, invaded Britain, and crossed the Rubicon River with his army, which was literally illegal. The Senate feared him because he had too much power and showed no signs of stopping. On March 15th, the Ides of March, Caesar walked into the theater of Pompeii for a Senate meeting. What he didn't know was that 60 senators had secretly planned his murder. They believed killing him would save the Roman Republic. The attack was brutal. 23 stab wounds. The senators surrounded him, and one by one they stabbed him. When Caesar saw his trusted friend Brutus among the killers, he allegedly said, "Et tu, Brutus," which means, "You too, Brutus." He collapsed at the base of Pompey's statue and bled to death. Here's the irony. The conspirators thought killing Caesar would restore the Republic. Instead, it destroyed it. His death triggered a civil war. His adopted son, Octavian, eventually became Augustus, Rome's first emperor. The assassination ended the Republic forever and created the Roman Empire that would dominate the Western world for 500 years. One murder, an empire born. Abraham Lincoln, April 14th, 1865. The Civil War had just ended. After 4 years of bloodshed that killed 620,000 Americans, President Abraham Lincoln finally had peace. Slavery was abolished, the Union was saved. Lincoln decided to relax by watching a play at Ford's Theater in Washington. John Wilkes Booth, a famous actor and Confederate sympathizer, had other plans. He hated Lincoln for freeing the slaves and defeating the South. Booth knew the layout of the theater perfectly. He knew exactly when the guards would be distracted. At 10:15 p.m., during the third act of Our American Cousin, Booth entered Lincoln's private box. He fired a single shot from a Derringer pistol into the back of Lincoln's head. Then he jumped onto the stage, breaking his leg, and shouted, "Sic semper tyrannis, thus always to tyrants." He escaped on horseback. Lincoln never regained consciousness. He died the next morning at 7:22 a.m. He was 56 years old. Booth was hunted down and killed 12 days later in a barn in Virginia. 8 conspirators were caught. 4 were hanged, including the first woman ever executed by the federal government. But here's what matters. Lincoln's assassination turned him into a martyr. It made Reconstruction harsher for the South, and it made him the most beloved president in American history. His death shaped America more than his life did.
Archduke Franz Ferdinand. June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was visiting Sarajevo with his wife Sophie. He was heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, one of Europe's great powers. This visit was supposed to be routine, but Serbian nationalists wanted Bosnia free from Austrian control. A group called the Black Hand planned to kill him. That morning, they stationed 6 assassins along the motorcade route. The first attempt failed. Someone threw a grenade at Franz Ferdinand's car. It bounced off and exploded under the next vehicle, wounding 20 people. The Archduke was furious, but continued to a reception at City Hall. Here's where history turned on pure chance. After the reception, Franz Ferdinand wanted to visit the wounded in the hospital. His driver took a wrong turn onto a narrow street. He stopped to reverse. At that exact moment, 19-year-old Gavrilo Princip was standing on that corner, eating a sandwich. Princip couldn't believe his luck. He walked up to the stopped car and fired 2 shots. One hit the Archduke in the neck. The other hit Sophie in the stomach. Both died within minutes. Austria blamed Serbia. Germany backed Austria. Russia backed Serbia. France backed Russia. Britain backed France. Within 5 weeks, Europe was at war. World War I killed 17 million people and destroyed 4 empires. The modern world was born. All because of a wrong turn.
Mahatma Gandhi, January 30th, 1948. India had just won independence from Britain after 200 years of colonial rule. Mahatma Gandhi, the 78-year-old leader who used non-violence to defeat the British Empire, was the most respected man in India. But the country was tearing itself apart. India had been split into Hindu India and Muslim Pakistan. Religious violence was killing thousands. Gandhi fasted to stop the bloodshed. He preached unity between Hindus and Muslims. This made some Hindu extremists furious. They thought he was betraying Hindus by being too sympathetic to Muslims. Nathuram Godse was a Hindu nationalist who believed Gandhi was weakening India. On that Friday evening, Gandhi was walking to a prayer meeting at Birla House in New Delhi. Hundreds of people gathered to see him. Godse pushed through the crowd, pretending to bow in respect. Then he pulled out a Beretta pistol and fired 3 times at point-blank range. Gandhi's last words were, "Hey Ram," "Oh God." He died within minutes. The man who defeated the British Empire without firing a shot was killed by one of his own people. Godse was tried, convicted, and hanged in November 1949. He showed no remorse. In court, he said he killed Gandhi to save India from Muslim appeasement. Gandhi's death shocked the world. It showed that even nonviolent movements can end in violence. But his methods inspired every civil rights leader who came after, from Martin Luther King to Nelson Mandela.
Malcolm X, February 21st, 1965. Malcolm X was one of the most powerful voices in Black America. Unlike Martin Luther King, who preached nonviolence, Malcolm told Black people to defend themselves by any means necessary. He was fiery, uncompromising, and fearless. The FBI called him dangerous. Malcolm had been a minister in the Nation of Islam, a Black Muslim movement, but he left the group after discovering its leader, Elijah Muhammad, was corrupt. Malcolm started his own organization and softened some of his views after traveling to Mecca. He saw Muslims of all races praying together and began believing in racial unity. The Nation of Islam saw him as a traitor. Death threats poured in. His house was firebombed. Malcolm told friends he wouldn't live much longer. On that Sunday afternoon, he was speaking at the Audubon Ballroom in Manhattan. His wife Betty and 4 daughters sat in the front row. About 400 people were in the audience. Suddenly, a man in the front stood up and yelled, creating a disturbance. As Malcolm tried to calm everyone down, 3 men rushed the stage with guns. They fired 21 shots at point-blank range. Shotgun blasts to the chest, pistol rounds to his body. Malcolm died at the hospital. He was 39 years old. 3 members of the Nation of Islam were convicted, but decades later, evidence showed the FBI and NYPD knew about the plot and did nothing. 2 men were exonerated in 2021 after spending over 20 years in prison for a murder they didn't commit.
Martin Luther King Jr. had won the Nobel Peace Prize. He'd led the Montgomery bus boycott, the March on Washington, and helped pass the Civil Rights Act. He was the most important Black leader in America. But by 1968, he was exhausted. King had come to Memphis, Tennessee to support striking sanitation workers who were demanding fair wages. The night before, he gave his famous "I've been to the mountaintop" speech, where he seemed to predict his death, saying, "I may not get there with you." The next evening, King stood on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, room 306. He was joking with his friends below, getting ready for dinner. At 6:01 p.m., a single rifle shot rang out. The bullet struck King in the jaw, severing his spinal cord. He collapsed. An hour later, at age 39, Martin Luther King Jr. was dead. James Earl Ray, a white supremacist and escaped convict, was arrested 2 months later at London's Heathrow Airport. He confessed to the murder, then immediately recanted, claiming he was framed. He spent 29 years in prison insisting someone else shot King. King's own family came to believe Ray didn't act alone. They thought the FBI or government was involved. Declassified documents show the FBI had been surveilling and harassing King for years. King's assassination triggered riots in over 100 American cities. It ended the era of nonviolent civil rights protest and radicalized a generation. The bullet that killed him changed America forever.
Robert F. Kennedy left a dramatic impact on American politics and history, but he always had his own decided opponents. On June 5, 1968, just 2 months after Martin Luther King's murder, America was still reeling. Robert F. Kennedy, brother of President John F. Kennedy, was now running for president himself. He was winning. That night, he just won the California Democratic primary, which put him on track for the nomination. It was after midnight at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. RFK had just finished his victory speech to a cheering crowd. He was being led through the hotel kitchen to avoid the mob of supporters and press. In that crowded kitchen hallway, 24-year-old Sirhan Sirhan, a Palestinian immigrant angry about Kennedy's support for Israel, waited with a .22 caliber revolver. As Kennedy walked past, shaking hands with kitchen workers, Sirhan stepped forward and fired. 8 shots. Kennedy was hit 3 times, including once in the head at point-blank range. 5 other people were also wounded. Kennedy collapsed on the floor. A busboy cradled his head. Someone put rosary beads in his hand. 26 hours later, Robert Kennedy died. He was 42 years old. His brother, Ted Kennedy, said at the funeral, "My brother need not be idealized in death. He should be remembered simply as a good and decent man." Sirhan was tackled at the scene and arrested. He was convicted and sentenced to death, later reduced to life in prison. But forensic evidence suggests there was a second shooter. Bullets came from behind Kennedy while Sirhan was in front. Even RFK's son believes Sirhan didn't fire the fatal shot. The second Kennedy assassination in 5 years destroyed American hope.
John Lennon. December 8th, 1980. John Lennon had just come back. After 5 years away from music, raising his son Sean, the former Beatle had released a new album. At 40, he was happy, living in New York City's Dakota apartment building. He and his wife, Yoko Ono, were walking freely around the city. No bodyguards, just two artists living their lives. That afternoon, as Lennon left the Dakota, a fan asked for his autograph. His name was Mark David Chapman. Lennon signed his album and chatted briefly. Chapman had flown from Hawaii specifically for this. He'd been obsessed with Lennon for months. That evening, Lennon and Yoko returned from a recording session. It was 10:50 p.m. As they walked through the Dakota's archway, Chapman stepped out of the shadows. He didn't say a word. He fired 5 hollow point bullets into Lennon's back from 6 feet away. Lennon staggered up the steps, saying, "I'm shot," and collapsed. A police car rushed him to Roosevelt Hospital, but he'd lost too much blood. At 11:15 p.m., John Lennon was pronounced dead. One of the most famous people on Earth. Gone in seconds. Chapman didn't run. He just stood there, reading The Catcher in the Rye, waiting for police to arrest him. He later said he killed Lennon to become famous, that he was tired of being a nobody. He got life in prison. He's been denied parole 12 times. The world mourned. Hundreds of thousands gathered in Central Park. The Beatles would never reunite. Chapman didn't just kill a man. He killed a dream.
Indira Gandhi. October 31st, 1984. Indira Gandhi was the most powerful woman in the world. She'd been Prime Minister of India for 15 years. She was the daughter of Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first Prime Minister. She'd led India through wars, poverty, and political chaos, but she'd also made dangerous enemies. That June, she'd ordered the Indian army to storm the Golden Temple, the holiest site in Sikhism, to remove armed Sikh separatists hiding inside. Hundreds of Sikhs died in the attack. The Sikh community was outraged. Many saw it as an unforgivable violation of their sacred space. Death threats came immediately. Advisors warned Gandhi to replace her Sikh bodyguards. She refused. She said, "If I die today, every drop of my blood will invigorate the nation." On that October morning, she was walking through her garden in New Delhi, heading to an interview with a British journalist. 2 of her bodyguards, Satwan Singh and Beant Singh, both Sikhs, stood at the gate. As she passed, they opened fire. 31 bullets hit her. She collapsed in a pool of blood. Her other guards rushed her to the hospital, but it was hopeless. Indira Gandhi, 66 years old, was dead. One assassin was killed immediately. The other was arrested, tried, and hanged. But that wasn't the end. Anti-Sikh riots exploded across India. Over the next 3 days, Hindu mobs massacred more than 3,000 Sikhs in Delhi alone. Police stood by and watched. Her assassination proved that even your own security can't protect you if they want revenge.
Yitzhak Rabin, November 4th, 1995. Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister of Israel, had just done the unthinkable. This former general, who'd spent his life fighting Israel's enemies, had shaken hands with Yasser Arafat, leader of the Palestinians, and agreed to give back occupied land for peace. He'd won the Nobel Peace Prize. The world praised him. But many Israelis hated him for it. Right-wing extremists called him a traitor. Protesters carried posters of Rabin in a Nazi uniform. Some rabbis declared a religious curse on him. The hatred was boiling over. That night, Rabin spoke at a massive peace rally in Tel Aviv. Over 100,000 people gathered. Rabin sang Song for Peace on stage, rare optimism for the famously tough former general. He seemed hopeful. As he left the rally and walked to his car, a young man stepped out of the crowd. His name was Yigal Amir, a 25-year-old law student and religious extremist. He believed killing Rabin would stop the peace process and save Israel. Amir fired 3 shots at point-blank range into Rabin's back. The prime minister collapsed. He died at the hospital less than an hour later. He was 73. Amir's assassination destroyed the Oslo peace process. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has only gotten worse since. One bullet ended the best chance for peace in the Middle East.
Gianni Versace, July 15, 1997. Gianni Versace was fashion royalty. His designs dressed Princess Diana, Elton John, and Madonna. He turned fashion into pop culture. His mansion in Miami Beach was a palace. At 50, he had everything: fame, wealth, influence. That morning, he walked to a nearby cafe to buy magazines, something he did almost every day. Simple routine. No bodyguards, just a morning walk in the Florida sun. At 8:45 a.m., as he returned and unlocked his mansion gate, a man approached from behind. Andrew Cunanan, a 27-year-old spree killer, fired 2 shots into the back of Versace's head with a .40 caliber pistol. Versace collapsed on his front steps. He died instantly. Cunanan ran. He was already on the FBI's 10 most wanted list for killing 4 other men across the country in the previous 3 months. Nobody knows exactly why he targeted Versace. Some say they'd met before. Others say Cunanan just wanted to kill someone famous. For 8 days, police hunted him. Then, on July 23rd, Cunanan was found on a houseboat 2 miles away. As police closed in, he shot himself in the head with the same gun he'd used to kill Versace. He left no note, no explanation, no motive. Versace's murder shocked the world. It showed that even the rich and famous aren't safe from random violence. His death also finally forced the FBI to take Cunanan seriously. If they'd acted sooner, Versace might still be alive. 4 people died because nobody stopped a killer in time.
Benazir Bhutto, December 27, 2007. Benazir Bhutto had just returned to Pakistan after 8 years in exile. She had been prime minister twice before, the first woman to lead a Muslim-majority nation. But she'd been forced out by corruption charges and military coups. Now, at 54, she was running for prime minister again. Pakistan's military and intelligence services hated her. So did the Taliban. 2 months earlier, a suicide bomber tried to kill her at a rally in Karachi, killing 139 people. She survived, but she knew she was a target. Before returning to Pakistan, she'd written emails to foreign diplomats. She named exactly who would be behind her assassination if she died: specific generals and intelligence officials. She predicted her own murder. That day, she spoke at a campaign rally in Rawalpindi, a military city. Thousands came to hear her. After her speech, she stood through the sunroof of her armored vehicle, waving to the crowd. A young man approached the car. He fired 3 pistol shots at her, then detonated a suicide vest packed with ball bearings and explosives. The blast killed 20 people. Bhutto was rushed to the hospital with a skull fracture. She died within an hour. The Pakistani government claimed she hit her head on the car's lever. They hosed down the crime scene before investigators arrived, but the truth came out. The Taliban claimed responsibility. A UN investigation found Pakistani intelligence knew about the plot and did nothing. Her assassination kept the military in control and showed that Pakistan's intelligence services are untouchable.
Boris Nemtsov, February 27, 2015. Boris Nemtsov was one of the last remaining voices against Vladimir Putin. A former deputy prime minister, he'd become Putin's fiercest critic, exposing corruption and condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He organized protests, he wrote reports. He wouldn't be silenced. That made him a marked man. Friends warned him constantly. Nemtsov knew the risks. He told people, "I'm afraid Putin will kill me," but he refused to stop. That night, he'd been on the radio criticizing Putin. Afterward, he walked across the Bolshoi-Moskovetsky Bridge with his Ukrainian girlfriend. It was late, around 11:30 p.m. The Kremlin glowed in the distance, just 200 yards away. This was the most surveilled area in Russia. Suddenly, a car pulled up. A man got out and shot Nemtsov 4 times in the back. He collapsed and died on the bridge. The killer fled in the waiting car. Mysteriously, 8 surveillance cameras on the bridge had been turned off for repairs that night. The footage that exists shows gaps exactly when the murder happened. 5 Chechen men were eventually convicted. They were low-level gunmen. The mastermind was never caught. Most investigators believe they were hired by Russian security services. Nemtsov's murder sent a message: oppose Putin, and you'll die. Since then, dozens of Putin critics, journalists, and defectors have been poisoned, shot, or mysteriously fallen from windows. Nemtsov's killing proved that in Putin's Russia, even being 200 yards from the Kremlin won't protect you. Maybe especially then.
Jamal Khashoggi. October 2nd, 2018. Jamal Khashoggi was a Saudi journalist living in exile in the United States. He wrote columns for the Washington Post criticizing Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. For a Saudi citizen, this was incredibly dangerous, but Khashoggi thought he'd be safe in Turkey. That day, he went to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to get paperwork for his upcoming marriage. His Turkish fiancée waited outside for him. He told her, "If I don't come out, call someone." She thought he was joking. Inside, 15 Saudi agents were waiting. They'd flown in on private jets that morning. The team included a forensic doctor who brought a bone saw. This was planned. Khashoggi never walked out. Turkish intelligence, which had bugged the consulate, recorded everything. The audio is horrifying. The Saudis strangled Khashoggi, then dismembered his body while he was still alive. They dissolved his remains in acid. His body has never been found. His fiancée waited outside for 11 hours before she realized something was terribly wrong. Turkey released evidence proving Saudi Arabia did it. The CIA concluded with high confidence that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman personally ordered the murder. Saudi Arabia denied everything, then admitted he died in a fist fight, then finally admitted it was premeditated. 18 Saudis were arrested, 5 got death sentences, later reduced to prison time. None were high-ranking officials. The Crown Prince faced no consequences. Khashoggi's murder proved that authoritarian governments can kill journalists on foreign soil inside their own embassies and get away with it. Because Saudi Arabia has oil, and the world still needs it.